it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving and had a lot of delicious food. In today's video, I want to show you this Phalaenopsis arrangement that I got for my birthday. So I want to talk through common things that happen with these Phalaenopsis in these decorative containers. It has no drainage holes or anything like that, so I want to walk through what that looks like and what you need to do, as well as some common issues that you may face eventually. I also want to show you how to go about watering these orchids because they're a little bit challenging since they come in a decorative container, and I think a lot of novice orchid growers don't really know what to do, and they pour a lot of water into the container and don't necessarily know how to take care of it. But jumping right in, let me show you this orchid a little more closely. So getting a little bit closer, she is a Harlequin Phalaenopsis orchid. She is a no ID. Harlequin is the pattern that she has, which is these little spots. She's got a yellow lip, and she's a white Phalaenopsis with pink little specks. She is beautiful. She has 2 spikes, and she is staked up with some moss. She looks very healthy from what I can see. And she's in a decorative container with some rocks and covered with some sort of mossy looking material. The presentation here is beautiful. Now she's got quite a few flowers. She looks super healthy. The blooms are cascading down. They're very, very pretty. And when I received her, a couple of days after receiving her, a couple of the buds blasted. This is something that's super common when you get a new orchid, either from a supermarket or from a florist. It just shows that the temperature changed on you. So this is a very common issue. And it's nothing to do with the way that you're growing it, but everything to do with the plant just getting adjusted to your environment. So this is very, very common. Now, when you grow this orchid again and it has its spikes, once you have consistent conditions, that won't typically happen. But bud blast is very common when you bring a new orchid home and these buds have not opened yet. So in terms of how this is set up with some rocks over the container. And now the issue with Phalaenopsis orchids is that you don't want to drown the orchid. So what I want to do to make sure that I'm taking this orchid out of this container to see what's going on, because if you water this like that, the water's going to pool on the bottom, and that's not going to be good for this orchid. It could potentially drown it out. So let's get a little bit closer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these pebbles to see what's going on here. And it looks like there is a container here, which is great, which means that we'll be able to water this orchid and take it out of this container, and then we'll be able to put it back. Now, whenever you have an orchid in a decorative container like this, if you pour water into it, water's going to pool up in this container, and it's going to drown out your roots, and that's something that you don't want. So a lot of these decorative orchids, sometimes they come covered with like a moss or grass, and you don't know what's going on. So anytime I get an orchid like this, I like to look at what's going on, even if I have to take it apart to do so. Now there's going to be some arrangements where you're not able to take it apart without ruining the display, but I usually give it like a week or 2 weeks before I start poking in here, and then we could see what's going on. In this case, it looks like it's in a pot, so this will be actually much easier than I expected. I thought this was just potted in here, but this is not bad. So we have this orchid in a bark mix, which is great. So that means that it's going to get a lot of air. There are drainage holes in the bottom of this orchid, so that's also good. So we're just going to give this orchid a little drink. It looks like it does have some moisture in here. I don't want to overwater it, but I want to make sure that I'm letting it drain through. And yeah, there's some of these roots are green, but some of them are a little bit silvery, so that means it is time for a good watering. So I will take you to the sink and we will take care of this and put it back together. So in terms of watering this orchid, I'm just gonna run water right through the pot, avoiding the crown. Now we're gonna let this drain for a little bit. We've thoroughly soaked it. It's in an airy bark mix, which is fantastic. And we're just gonna let this drain for a couple of minutes. So I'm just gonna let it sit here in my sink for just a few minutes, let that moisture come out, and then we will put it back in its decorative container. Now, the key here is that you don't want water to sit inside of that container, because then these roots will suffocate, and we don't want that. I'm thankful that this was an easy decorative container where I was able to take it out and then I'm able to assemble it together. That's not always the case. Sometimes you have that moss, like I mentioned earlier, which it might not even be in a pot. Then in that case, you want to water it and then make sure you're draining it, because you don't want it to sit in water. And I think the biggest killer of these decorative orchids is that it sits in water. So I'm going to give it just a couple more seconds to drain off here. I don't want it to sit in water, and it's all just dripping out, and we will put it right back together. So I've let the water run off. As you can see, everything is nice and green and hydrated, and now it is time to put it back into the container. I think this one's going to be quite easy since it's just in a pot and it's just got this decorative looking moss on the outside. So we're just putting it back here. I'm really thankful about this one. Sometimes you never know what you're dealing with these decorative orchids, but they made this easy for you to water and take care of. So we're just going to put the rocks right back into the orchid and make sure that it looks just the way it did. It's just basically hiding the inner pot and makes it look a little bit nicer. So I'm going to fill in the back. And that is all. The pot is well hidden, and this is good to go. So I'm going to put her back on the windowsill. Alrighty, ladies and gents, we are all set. So what I've basically done is I've put the pebbles back on top. It hides the pot inside. And in summary, when you bring a new orchid into your home, especially one from a garden center or maybe from a florist, bud blast is super, super common. And this is a result of a change in environment. Perhaps it was very humid at the florist. Maybe it was warmer and your apartment or house is cooler. But they're very common buds to blast. Not all will, so some will open up for you. Like I think this one will open. It looks good. I think it'll open up nicely along with the others. Taking your decorative container apart, you'll be able to make sure you have a healthy root system. Now, the rocks will maintain some of the moisture in there, so I don't think I need to water this for another maybe 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. I'll just check it out in about a week and see if it's dry. But this will make sure that your orchid lasts, and then when the blooms fade, you can repot it and set it up for success. But you really want to maintain a healthy root system. So that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was useful, especially for the beginner growers. I think the biggest thing is making sure that your pot does not get drowned out so the roots stay nice and healthy. I probably won't need to water this for another 10 to 14 days because the pebbles will maintain the moisture on top of the medium. And if you get a decorative container that you're not able to pull apart, that's okay. Just give it like 2 weeks after getting it, I say, and then just start pulling it apart to see what you're working with. Because I think although the blooms are beautiful, you want to make sure you're not suffocating the orchid. And worst case scenario, if you're watering it, you want to make sure that you're pouring the excess water out. You don't want to keep pouring water into a container like this without drainage holes. It will for sure suffocate the roots. Well, anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you guys soon. Bye.